Great. Got it. So we can start whenever you want to.
Oh, let's start now. Hi,
Well,
everybody.
but let me just no, not yet. Let me think just for a second, because you always want the first couple of minutes to be kind of sticky, grabby. So
Why don't we just hug people? And
why
then
don't
they'll
we
be like,
just
we'll hug people, and then they'll feel like grabbed.
oh,
The first part should be a hug, and the last part's a dance.
in fact, you're free to leave some of this in as we think about how do we
Oh,
start.
I know I'll be leaving it in.
Okay.
I am well aware.
Hey, Julia, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for actually wanting to do more of these. I'm really enjoying them.
Well, I'm enjoying them, and I actually think there's evidence that a few people are also enjoying them.
Good, good.
I believe that you have something to show the viewing
Oh
public.
yeah. So someone wrote in, a listener slash viewer wrote in
Yes, and we're not going to mention their name because we haven't asked their permission yet.
right, but they're a cool person. And as are all our listeners and viewers, they sent this. They said, look, if you need a t-shirt sort of to express the ideas in your show, how about this one? Pandas against the patriarchy, which
I
can
love
be
that.
worn by any gender because anyone who's
Yes,
against the patriarchy can express that through the panda.
right, right.
And so we're going to leave a link to where you can actually get this. I love it
In the show notes, as they say.
in the
Very
show
good.
notes.
Yes,
Yeah.
excellent.
So what are we talking about today, Carmen?
Well, I thought the first thing I might talk a little bit about is Hispanic Heritage Month,
All
which
right. So is
began
this going to be like an infomercial?
no, which began September 15th and ends October 15th.
Cool.
And it I because I used to be a senior person in the intelligence community, I
I love that. We should at some point talk about crappy redacting.
the what?
Crappy redacting, like
Oh,
just
crap.
just
Yes,
poor redacting.
be redacting, yes. But anyway, because I was a senior member of the intelligence community, and because I'm Puerto Rican, I invariably get at least one invite during Hispanic Heritage Month to talk to someone, and I'm talking to Friday about Hispanic heritage. And I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, it's contrived. On the other hand, I am, as a Hispanic, kind of sad and sort of mystified by the fact that Hispanics punch well below their weight in American society. So if by weight you are saying that their influence should somehow be proportionate to their population, so they're, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20% of the population, I think, in the United States are Hispanics, then our influence should be higher in many things. And for example, in professional positions in the federal government and in the intelligence community, in particular, Hispanics make up, single digit, and I think it's low single digits in terms of the workforce of the intelligence community. It's hard to name prominent, influential Hispanic politicians, except for this one guy now who's been indicted for bribery. And it just makes me sad. So it's a sad thing. And one reason why it makes me sad, and this is something I always point out when I talk during Hispanic Heritage Week, that when you do a DNA analysis of an average Hispanic person in the United States, we actually physically manifest the melting pot. So, for example, my DNA, you want me to explain?
Yeah, tell me,
Yeah,
tell me, tell me. Isn't
yeah.
that true of everyone? But you're saying it's not. So tell
Well,
me.
it's particularly true of uh, Hispanics. So when the average Hispanic uh, ancestry or 23andMe DNA breakdown is something like 70% European, 15 to 20% Native American, 10% African American, and then some odds and ends. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's almost exactly mine. I'm 70% European, 15%, maybe 16% Native American, and around 10% African American. And that is sort of more representative of the wonderful goulash of people that live in this America than any other group. So Native Americans obviously don't have that same DNA background. Asian Americans don't. European Americans don't. So there's something about the Hispanic experience which makes them you kind of an individual representation of the American melting pot. Yes.
That is super interesting. It makes complete sense because, of course, Europeans went over and colonized a lot of the areas in
Right.
South America and Central America. So that makes sense. But what I noticed when you're talking about it is sometimes you say they and sometimes you say we.
About Hispanics?
Yeah. And so I'm wondering
Yeah.
if what like, I hope this is not too personal, but to me, it's like
It's always
interesting.
tricky to talk about these things that we all
Yeah.
recognize are part of our reality, but we don't really understand the right etiquette about how to talk about it.
Because you're talking about it from a meta point of view, where in the Western sort of European tradition, you're not supposed to be of the people that you're describing, because then it's not considered objective, right? But at
Mm,
the same time, you are of the people that you're describing, and so it
right.
feels to me like you reflexively shift back and forth because you must own that ambivalence around, like, well, if I'm part of these
I
people, then I'm not
Yeah.
objective.
And that's probably right. And I would say the other thing that this makes me think about, which is the other thing I wanted to talk about, however gingerly I will talk about it, is this question of is there a way that humans can avoid seeing each other except through these racial, ethnic, sometimes culturally imposed filters, oftentimes culturally imposed filters? So, for example, okay, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm very Puerto Rican. Um, but I'm often in a, let's say, a work or professional setting or even a social setting. I'm often, or not often, because it doesn't often happen, but sometimes someone will react to me in a way that it's clear that the first thing they see about me is that I'm Hispanic. And I'm always like of two minds about this. There's something more essential about me that I want to be seen as. And when I'm not seen that way, I it's not necessarily good. And
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah. It's like
immune.
they're not seeing you, like the core of you.
Yeah,
But at the same time, depending on how they do it, they might be acknowledging a kinship,
exactly. And I'm
right?
not immune to this. So when and I think about this a lot. I keep trying to strain this out of myself, but I can't. If I'm in a group setting and I see an African American, let's say there are European Americans, Jewish Americans, African Americans, and Hispanics in that group, I will somehow see first the African American. And when I become consciously aware, and again, back to our conscious and unconscious minds, right? I find it impossible to control my unconscious mind's way of filtering the people I see through this racial, ethnic background lens. It just annoys me to no end that that happens, and yet it happens all the time, and I can't stop it.
And we do it with gender too. And we do
Oh,
it
and we
with
do it with gender.
status, like the way people are dressed,
Oh,
right?
and with physical attributes, like,
Or
I
are you
mean,
paralyzed or not? Are you in a
yeah,
wheelchair or not? Yeah.
when was the last time that you saw a physically very unusual person? It's just, you can imagine whatever traits, physical traits you want to, and then, I mean, trying to see them as humans
Yeah.
without seeing whatever that issue is
Yeah.
that makes them stand out, unusual, is so hard. And what makes it hard is, at least I feel, that that person has always been conscious of the gaze that people put on them, and
Mhm.
just how
I
you
know
know
it's very fraught. I know. So I have a
it's
friend. I have a
so
friend.
fraught, it's so awkward.
I visit a nursing home maybe 2 or 3 times a week because I have a friend who's my age, but she had a massive stroke, and I visit
Yes,
her to do work with her. There are people in the nursing home who have no legs, who have a tick where they can only say one word over and over again, and maybe the word is a swear word or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of situations in there where you're conscious of your gaze, your ears, where your attention is directed, and how to be loving. I mean, if you're a compassionate
yes,
person, you're trying to
right,
figure out how to be compassionate in this environment. And one of the things I've started doing, and it has been really is recognizing that it's all in me. It's like a physical, it's like it's not a mental shift. It's like before I go in there, like, okay, all these people all know that there's stuff about them that's weird. And they're surrounded by other people who've got weird stuff going on. And they
right,
know that, like, except for the people who are unconscious, they
right,
know that, right?
right.
So it's me, and how can I feel in my body this kind of unconditional love before I walk in the door, where I'm
Yes,
just like feeling love for myself, like I'm a
right,
human and I have all these unconscious biases like everyone does,
right,
and that doesn't mean I'm
right,
a bad person, because of course I'm a person
right.
and it's natural. And then just like getting that love in there, like to forgive myself. And then once I'm filled with that sort of self forgiveness, this is interesting because yesterday was Yom Kippur, right? All about
Yes, of
forgiveness,
course,
right?
yes.
So that self forgiveness, then I'm capable of looking in the eyes the person who's in the wheelchair and saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, good to see you." And
Right.
I'm having conversation with a person, you know.
Yeah. One of
So
the
yeah,
themes of Pandas playing cello is I'm sure always going to be the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious, or whatever the right word to use, mind is.
yeah, or
And
non-conscious even is more usually used.
non-conscious, right? And often my argument is going to be that the non-conscious mind is our friend and does many wonderful things for us. But in this particular area that we're talking about, it's not always very helpful. The fact that it's so difficult to manage, to control what it does, that's been, this behavior has been accumulated, through a lifetime, but arguably across millennia, with some kind of DNA encoding that creates this almost instinctive reaction to certain physical attributes in people. It's just all wrong. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I really think this. I really agree with you, and I think that your unconscious mind is again your friend. I think
No.
both your conscious mind and your non-conscious are your friends. In fact, the relationship between them is your real friend because you need them both, right?
Mm,
But the non-conscious mind also gives you a way out of it. So it gives you that bias and that sort of physical response, and it gives you a
mm-hmm.
way out of it, which is again to train the body. Like this is a body thing. I took a year-long class in body-centered anti-racism, so like this capacity to,
Oh,
yeah, it was really cool. She had us just tuning into our bodies and talking about and listening and seeing different things and tuning into what happens to our bodies when we do that. It was a bunch of white people. And I don't mean to frame white people as bad in this. I know that there's racism among every group of people, but this was a group of white people, so we could feel comfortable just saying, like, yep, I'm racist in this way, clearly, and I would like to get over it. But one of the things I ended up talking to my mother about, who's in her 80s and who notices her reactions to things, but started
mm-hmm.
noticing more when I told her about this class, she came to me and she said, okay, I was in the department store or in the drugstore, and I walked through the aisle that has the hair products for Black people. And I realized,
Or they call it ethnic hair.
whatever, I like, they didn't
At
call it
least
hair. I know they can't even call it. It's like embarrassing.
It drives me
And she
nuts.
said to herself, like, she realized she had a disgust reaction when she walked by those products. And she's
Yes,
like, that was the first time I realized that she had a
right.
physical disgust reaction. She's a white person who had been trained, sort of in the water, that's like, it's disgusting to have hair like that.
Yeah.
So I was so proud of her for saying that, like noticing it and saying it. And so to me, I guess
Wow.
the point is that you can change, but you change these things through working and acknowledging with your non-conscious
Yes.
processes.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, this thing about hair, one of the times I did a Hispanic heritage presentation, I decided to talk about pelo malo. Pelo means hair in Spanish, malo means bad. So there's a common discussion point in Hispanic families and societies about how unfortunate it is that someone has pelo malo, i.e., frizzy hair. So as I've gotten older and grayer, my hair has become less frizzy and more sort of sea waves, which which amuses me, right? But when I was younger, I had pelo malo, really frizzy hair, and for reasons which are obscure to history, perhaps, although there's maybe some anthropologist listening who's going to help us out. Uh, Frizzy, tight, curly hair is always lesser, not as good as long, straight hair. And, what's up with that? Where the heck did that come from? It's nutty, right?
It's both anti-Semitism and
Yes.
anti-Black. And
Yes.
because both of those populations have frizzy hair. And I have always been like, in the 4 episodes we've done so far, I've actually just realized right now that you said that, I'm always grateful I'm wearing these headphones because it holds down my hair. So like, look at this.
Oh,
This is my hair,
yes.
right?
Welcome. Yeah.
It's really
Yeah. It's
frizzy, but it
great.
looks so much more professional when I have
Oh,
that
of
now to put the
course.
headphones
Yes,
back.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, you know, there's so much wrapped up in diversity and equity issues in the world. There's so much stuff in there that when your discussion of diversity just defaults to like percentages of people that you've hired, you're just so losing the boat. You're can you lose a boat?
You could actually lose a boat. I actually like that phrase. Instead of
You're
missing the
so
boat, you have
yes,
lost the boat.
yes, you're so losing the boat. And and it's so hard to have this kind of straightforward conversation about this.
Well, that's where
It's
inclusion and belonging. So this idea of belonging. So inclusion is one thing, and the word inclusion is weird because it's this idea like, we have this amazing thing going on, and we're going to include you at our birthday
and
party.
you know how I react to it. Why do I need to be included? Don't I
Right,
just
right. Like, can't I just
belong
come to your birthday?
organically?
And that's the belonging. Yeah. So I feel like inclusion, while it's important if you're in a position of power to include
Yeah,
people, if there's something separating you, belonging is really what turns people on, because that's about the
right,
love. That's about the
right.
connection. That's
Yeah,
about us all saying, yeah, we're all flawed humans. We all belong to the human
right.
race. This is who I am, which is different from this other person who may have the same genetic background. You know,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
even my
Yeah.
sister, I will say, definitely different people. So
Right.
it's just a very same genetic background, very
Yep.
close. So it's belonging as the unique you. That
Yes.
is really what
Right.
inclusion should be about.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I hope you talk about this when you give your talk.
Well, I mean, this talk is on Friday, although I have a talk tomorrow where I will talk a little bit about diversity. But yes, I always aspire to be as as real, I don't know what other word to use,
Mhm.
as I can be when I give these talks. And yeah, so it's important stuff for sure.
It's
So
important stuff.
yeah,
And
so
and I mean, simple things like, I mean, just going back to the brain. like we can forgive ourselves a little bit for some of this because we have cells in our brain, many cells that simply all they do is differentiate between black and white. And that's so
Mm.
we could do edge detection. I mean, it's this very benign, so it's a
Oh my
very,
gosh, of
very
course. So
primitive, you know,
right. So it's
differentiation.
just it's just like eyesight 101, kind of perception 101, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So even before you get into the culture stuff
Yes.
is very, very fundamental to how the brain
Right.
works.
Right.
And
Right.
this need to hold on to resources for your tribe versus other tribes, like that's very primitive and that's
Right.
there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it makes sense. We just have to like change.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess maybe for Hispanic heritage, you have, I think, what looks like a Mexican
Oh,
person on
you
cover of
know,
the what's back there.
you know what
Yeah,
this is.
Frida Kahlo.
you
Oh,
you
I
gave this
gave you that
you
notebook.
gave this to me. You're like acting like it's
Okay.
a mystery. Did you actually forget?
No, I did forget that I gave it to you. Yes.
I love that you gave this to me. I think it's all filled up now. Oh no,
Yeah,
it's
very
not. The
good.
second half. The second half needs filling. Yeah, I treasure this. So Frida Kahlo, when I was growing up, she was a popular pop icon, sort of in the 80s and
Yes,
90s.
right.
Um, and I didn't really understand much about her except like her eyebrows were connected in the middle, and
Yes.
she was this awesome artist, and she was Hispanic, and this is literally all I knew. So, but I educated myself just recently because you told me you wanted to talk about Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah, okay.
And I found out some things so first of all, I had thought she was a member of the Communist Party all her life. No, she joined and then she left. And
Mm,
and I kind of like that about her, because she like said, not this for me.
hmm.
Also, she had the same background you just talked about. And in the article I read, they said that she had a complicated ethnic background,
Oh,
but I think
right.
it's the ethnic background, now that you're talking about this, of many Hispanic people. So,
Yes,
right?
it is pretty much the norm. Yes.
Yeah, so she had a
Of
German
Latino
father, I believe.
people. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was interesting, but she had this incredibly spiritual, surrealistic understanding, and her sort of philosophy towards the world was love and self-acceptance. Like, so she wanted to depict, this is what's true about me.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is she never smiled in her portraits because she didn't like her teeth. So there's this mix of like like awareness and forgiveness and acceptance, and not that, right?
Right.
She wanted to have the straight teeth. And so I think this is what we all struggle with, right? Like Carmen and
Right.
I,
Right.
as you can tell, we're strong women. We like to be authentic. We like to present what we're experiencing. Yeah, strong like bull. And and yet there's always this, and I think for everyone, there's always this undercurrent of like, is this really okay? Insecurity. And that has to be accepted too.
Right. Right.
That's part of it. So I'm all in on Frida Kahlo now.
Good. Good.
Thank
Well,
you.
I mean, you were commenting at the little guy behind me here, the
Yeah. What is
yellow
it?
thing. Well, it's an inflatable. It's actually meant to be used like on at the beach or in a pool. It's an inflatable Naboo Starfighter,
Okay. Can
which,
you go pick that up and put it
yeah.
on?
Well, I don't think I can wear it, but
I think
here.
it's, well, yeah, isn't it does it go over your waist like for a little kid, or do
No,
you
no, no,
hop into
no, no,
it?
no. It
Oh,
is.
you sit in it.
It's like a float.
Oh, fun. You
That's
could
what
sit
it is.
on it.
You could sit on it. Well, I can't for sure, but
Well, you could
what a
if you
way.
were in water.
Yes. And so this is the Naboo Starfighter, and
And
I put
why
it
do you have
here.
that there?
I started putting it here because I thought that white wall was kind of boring.
Oh, but now what is the meaning? Because there's a reason you have an inflatable of a Naboo
Well,
Starfighter in
does
your
it
library.
just why do I have it in my library? Let me get closer to the microphone.
Yeah, plus I see Yoda over there, which I know that people think of you as Yoda, so I like that.
Yeah, there's Yoda. You can see Yoda.
Who was also
Uh,
mixed heritage, by the way.
yeah, there you go. I have it there because I've always been attracted to anything that cut against an image of being overly or not over. Well, I think almost all seriousness is overly serious. So I just always been attracted to whimsical things. Like I could show you, I have my little Darth Vader here. I have well, I mean, I have so many things. I have little animals that I can look at. So I've always been attracted to fun. So I always want to have fun.
Okay, but 2/3 of the things that you just showed are related to Jedi. So I think you're secretly a Jedi. I think that's also what you're saying.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm part of that generation that saw Star Wars 5 times in the opening 10 days, probably. So
Yep, me too.
it made a huge impact. And yeah, I mean, and I'm of mixed minds on the whole Jedi thing. You know, I think we all can be, this sounds saccharine, but I don't think there's a special group of people endowed with the abilities to be good, strong,
Yes. Yes.
powerful,
Agree.
heroic.
But
I
Jedis
think,
are the ones who choose to try to develop that in themselves.
yes.
Yeah.
But they're still like they're looking for people that have some innate set of qualities. That means that they're going
Yeah.
to be able to develop that better. And
Yeah. I don't love
I
that, although I do understand that because it's easier, right? But I think that
yeah.
we ought to all be trying to see if we can pursue the Jedi path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Pro
That's why
pro Jedi.
I have that stuff. But I'm also, well, I'm not even going to talk about that any
Oh no, you
further.
gotta say it. You gotta say it.
Well,
Now
I
you
was going to say that I'm also fond of other kind of fun imagery. Like if you come to my house, you'll see a lot of Michelin mans. And I just like the idea of the little tire guy and various other iconic 20th, 19th century characters. I sort of populate my house with them. So
Yeah, I
there
mean
you
this
go.
this room for me is spare because the rest of the house is populated by my husband's art, which is all over the
Oh,
place.
yes. Wow, that
Yeah,
would be
you've seen
something.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. Well, we'll
Well,
put links to all these
yeah,
things that we
yes, absolutely.
discussed,
Yeah.
and maybe a link to Frida Kahlo, and and that one video called Gloria's Call. We'll put a link to that
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
women's surrealist art.
Yes.
Because that relates, and I think those are good things.
Right,
Oh,
right.
are you ready to dance?
I am ready to dance. By the way, I also want to dare any organization out there planning a hokey Hispanic heritage event to just show a video of our conversation for Hispanic Heritage Month because it's
Yeah.
probably more real than whatever speaker is going to talk about,
Well,
including
that's a
me,
good challenge. I
including
have a
me.
I have a challenge, which is that periodically Carmen has said, and I'll cut this out if it's not true anymore, but I think it's true. Carmen has said that she wants to have guests on the show. But
I
here's
do.
yeah, okay. So here's the
Well,
challenge.
yes, I mean, yes.
If you're a guest on this show, if you become a guest on this show, you have to do the sh dancing with us.
I think that's absolutely important.
It's
Actually,
critical.
it's essential. You cannot not dance.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So we're going to dance to a song. Should I mention? We're going to put a link in it.
Yeah, we'll put a
But
link. Mi swing es tropical. Is that
Mi
correct?
swing es tropical. Yes.
From the
Yes.
soundtrack of Chef. Yeah. And we're
Yes.
going to forward it. In fact, we'll put a link that's timed to the moment we forward it to so that you get to join us at the part where it really gets going. There's a little bit of a quiet,
Right.
so that
Right.
that'll be no problem. So just when you hit play, it'll be at that point. I'll do the countdown as soon as you're ready. All right. Oh, that was fun.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, do you have any,
Yeah.
do you think we should cut that off or just let that go?
What?
Do you think we should cut that off? Or should we let that keep going?
Whatever you think is best. I wanted to say a couple of things about this though.
Okay.
Let me see, close this out so we don't get any more.
Can we stop recording?
No, keep recording because you might want to use it.
Okay.
So what I wanted to say is sometimes when I do a talk in public and it's like a bigger event, which is not that often, but they have asked me for my walk-up song, which is the song that plays if they've got a nice, if it's a very fancy event, as you walk up to the podium. And I've had various choices over the last few years, but this one now is going to come up to be a walk-up song for me. And of course, the group who's singing it is Puerto Rican. And so if you listen to the words very carefully, they reference a lot of, they actually say Puerto Rico, and they talk about coquito, which is a Puerto Rican holiday drink, like an eggnog. They talk about Borinquen, Borinquen, which I understand was the indigenous people's name for the island, Borinquen.
Puerto Rico came from.
Yes. Well, Puerto Rico is a Spanish thing, just means rich port.
Oh, right, of course. But it sure sounds like, I mean, it doesn't sound.
Yeah, no, they do. Yeah, but Borinquen, I don't know what that meant in that language. And so Puerto Ricans often call themselves Boricuas, of people of Borinquen. And I just thought I'd point that out because
that's the indigenous,
it's a good thing, whereas oftentimes you sort of have to force the issue or consciously think about honoring what this place was before the Europeans came. At least in Puerto Rico, it's just part of how we speak about ourselves.
Yeah.
Somos Boricuas, and that's very common to say that's what we are, Boricuas.
Cool. I would love to keep that in. I think I'll stick it after the show dancing and
yeah. You just let people know that there's a little extra content at the end, or
yeah.
You can even flip the order.
Nah, I'll let it, because the great thing about dancing is it like brings you to another perspective or reminds you of things because you're moving.
Oh, and and another great thing, this guy I know he's in the national security community, neat guy, and I met him once for drinks, and he's his favorite thing to do is salsa dancing. And he said to me, and this is like, and I have to say it now because I mentioned it, but he's Anglo. He's like, I don't think he has much of any Hispanic, Spanish blood in him or heritage. Let's not speak of blood because that's just a horrible concept, but the heritage. Yeah, he did say that it's a funny thing that he loves to dance, and he will take a sort of not very good Latina dancer as a partner over a very good Anglo dancer as a partner, European. And he says that because this is what he said, there is something about the spirit of that music that the Hispanic people naturally understand and the non-Hispanic people don't understand, except for Israelis, for whom there's something about Israel and salsa dancing that is very convivial.
Yeah, klezmer and salsa, not so far apart.
Yeah, I love klezmer. Oh my gosh, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You would call that, an archetype, right? Like there's this shared archetype that you're tapping.
Yeah, yes. Right.
Yeah, that feels real to me. I was watching you dance and I noticed that you were going on the lower, like the like I tend to go on the fast, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and you're
Right.
on the, like groove.
I'm on the groove, right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, yeah, and she goes for the groove, and it's like I'm a harmonic of your
Mm-hmm.
dance.
All right.
All right, well, that
Okay.
was fun.
Well, let me know when you have it all ready so I can share it as well.